Hey y'all, and welcome. My name is Ashley Lorenzo, and this is a shorter video to bring relief into the wrists. So if you practice yoga regularly, or if you spend a lot of time typing or texting, this is a really good practice for you to bring some relief into the forearm, into the wrist, and just flexibility throughout the arm. So we'll go ahead and just begin seated. Any seat will do. Just become mindful of what shins forward or what ankles forward so that we can switch it later and keep things even. Otherwise, you're gonna bring the back of your hands together, your fingers point down, and then just let your elbows drop. And so already just beginning to press a little bit of a pressure into both hands as the elbows drop. You should already feel a stretch across the wrist. And so this practice is really easy, mindful, and really the one thing that we want to keep doing is breathing, right? So especially when we're moving into areas that seem a little tender, right? Or may become tender with practice and time, that we just use the breath and these little movements that we create to regain opening and freedom into any areas that feel a little stuck. And you can stay here, this is fine, or I like to almost like circle the wrist. Yeah, so just creating large circles and just note what way you're moving first. I'm gonna take a few rounds like this and then do go in the opposite direction. So just really therapeutic movement for the wrist, just to bring a little bit of circulation back into those areas that get cramped up. And then go ahead, just kind of shake that off. In fact, bring your hands forward of you. This is fun. I got this from my teacher, my first teacher, Catherine Budig. So go ahead and just like make little tiny waves here with your hands. Yeah, just kind of like you're flapping, like a bird, your wings. Yeah, and then allow those flaps to get a little bit bigger. Just kind of shaking it out. In fact, go ahead and do that. Just kind of flap and shake, flap and shake. Kind of back and forth like this, just bringing a little bit of movement into the joint and really stretching it out. Good. And then just kind of let it go. And then turn your right palm forward and just take your opposite hand to your fingers and just kind of stretch your arm forward. Just a little bit of release. And we'll take a variation of this that's a little bit deeper in just a moment. It's a few breaths here. Just really mindful of not locking out the elbows, keeping a little bend. So really focusing on the flexion in the wrist crease here. And then go ahead and release. And then just switch. So draw your fingers down. Yeah, keep again a little bend into your left elbow, right? That'll help. And then let's go ahead and release. If you need to, kind of shake the hands out. And let's come forward into our table position. So as you stack your shoulders over your wrist creases and your hips over your two knees, we'll actually turn our right hand, our right fingertips, towards the back of our mats. And if your hand doesn't turn quite all the way, that's totally fine. Yeah, and maybe just turns to the edge of your mat. And then just lean back slightly. And I'm actively bending my right elbow here so that I'm not locking out the elbow joint. Yeah, and then see if you can press more into the heel of your hand, and that'll be quite an intense stretch. If it feels like too much, right, then just forget about it. And then you'll just come forward, right? Keep the breath moving. Another few breaths here. And then let's go ahead and bring our right fingertips forward. I would go slow. And then turn now your left fingertips to face the back end of your mat or moving towards that direction. Make sure the heel of your left hand is in line with your right wrist. And then lean back slightly. And that should be a big stretch for most of us. And just kind of keep the breath moving. It's really helpful. And then go ahead and bring your right fingertips to face the back of your mat. So 2 hands are facing back, and maybe bend the elbows and just lean the hips back. In fact, let's go ahead and you can either stay here or begin to create large circles. So with your body moving forward, the shoulders past the wrist creases, really, really large. So you're kind of getting into all those nooks and crannies where tension or tightness may be held. Just beginning to bring those areas a little bit of relief. If you're moving in one direction, make sure to move into the opposite direction now. So this work's super therapeutic, especially again for those of us who spend a lot of time typing or on any kind of electronic device, which really is all of us. Just making sure to take the time out of your day, be it once a week or however often you can, to counter that everyday use or even the use from our yoga practices. And then eventually find stillness. And then maybe just stay here for another few breaths. I'm gonna invite a movement that may be too much for some, so just tread lightly. Maybe stay here, or step your left foot back, and then your right coming into your plank shape with the reverse hands. And believe it or not, this may be enough for most of us. Others, maybe you shift back into your dog. Just really careful, keeping the bend into the elbows. Of course, your hips won't go as high as they normally will. You should feel a really large stretch across your forearms into the wrist. And then that's enough for me, so I'm gonna set my knees down. And then very slowly, turn my fingertips forward. Whew. And let's come into the dog shape just as a little relief, and you'll feel now with the opening the wrist that maybe it's easier to press back into the dog, or at the very least, easier to feel the thumb and index fingers press into the earth. The thumb and index knuckle mound, And then we'll go ahead and just lower the 2 knees down, and let's see if we can keep going with this. This is one of my favorites. We'll bring our left forearm down, and then we're gonna kind of scoot in. Takes a little scooting. And you'll bring your right knee to your left forearm and just kind of begin to massage from the inner elbow, right, on the forearm, and then slowly down. And maybe lower your right forearm and really allow your knee to really press into your arm. And this is one that you'll want to kind of linger in. You may even feel your fingers curl. That's normal. Try to get up into the wrist creases. And keep the breath moving. Maybe you walk your knee back up towards your elbow. It's just like a really sweet massage. And then we'll slowly release, right knee back. Ooh, that one feels so good. Left hand down, right hand down. And then I think we should do the second side. So lower your right forearm, walk your left hand forward. And then it's maybe enough, right? Just kind of scoot in and just get your knee to move towards. It can be left or right knee, there's no rules. And then just let your knee walk towards your wrist crease. And if any of this feels like super delicious, which I think this one does especially, you'll just kind of linger in that area, or maybe even pause your video eventually, or just ignore me completely as you continue to massage into your forearm, into your wrist. And then let's go ahead and just release. 2 hands down. And again, let's curl the toes under and just press back into our dog shape. So keep the knees generously bent, and walk your feet towards your hands and walk your hands towards your feet. So you're about somewhere in the middle of your mat. We'll take the Padahastasana. So bend your knees enough so that you allow the hamstrings to slack a little bit, the low back to release. And then we're going to pick the ball mounds of both feet up and bring our hands underneath the soles of the feet. Now this is really lovely if you get the toes all the way to the wrist creases, so that you can shift your weight forward into the ball mounds of your feet, or even your toes into the wrist creases themselves, and then allow your elbows to bend and broad and straight side. So you'll get a release of the back legs here, but the pressure of your feet moving towards your wrist should help to relieve any tension there. And maybe you kind of actually use your toes themselves to massage into the wrist. And just kind of going back and forth. Just make sure you're breathing here. A lot of these shapes can be pretty awakening, let's say. Shoulder blades up, and just let the weight shift forward. And if you firm your quads, it'll help move you away from that feeling like you're about to tip over or somersault. And then just very slowly release by lengthening, and then just place your hands down, and then walk back into your dog shape. And then from your dog shape, we're just going to go ahead and lower our knees to the earth, and then cross our ankles and just come all the way to lying on our back. We'll move into one last release, and if this is new or it just sounds different, you may want to look at the screen and watch me. So as you lie down, we're going to reach our right arm overhead, the knees are bent, and then roll to your right side like a fetal-like position. And then take your left arm and just rest your left arm on your left side. And then we're going to lift our left arm up and internally rotate from the shoulder. So think the half the Mukhasan arm. Bend your left elbow, and then slide your hand, almost like you're sliding up in between the shoulder blades. And then from here, we're going to roll onto our back. And if you feel like this is too much of a pressure on your wrist and your hand, I'll invite you to roll back over and just slide your hand further down. And again, to the degree that it doesn't feel like it's enough, do the same, but slide your hand further up. Otherwise, we're just resting here and allowing really the back body to press into the wrist crease and letting that pressure just release any tension that's maybe held in the joint. You can even close your eyes for the few moments that we're here. The knees can just knock in. And last couple breaths. And then we'll go ahead and separate the knees if they're together. Now roll over to your side body again. Right? And then I like to just let the arm dangle for a moment. You'll almost feel like a rush of blood back into the wrist crease. This energy moving through and opening any areas that are tight. Now, free again. And then just reach your left arm overhead, and we'll just roll onto our back and onto the second side. So nothing too fancy, just let it rest onto your left bicep, bring your right arm over you, and then you'll reach the arm up, internally rotate, so that you can bend your elbow and slide your hand up your back. And then as you're ready, you'll just lie down. I know that I need to slide my hand a little further down my back on this side because my elbow sometimes gets a little tender. And just breathing here, allowing the weight of your body just to relax. Maybe the knees knock in. Notice where there's any resistance to release and see if your body can relax a little heavier towards the ground onto your hand. And then do take a fuller breath in. We'll separate the knees and just roll again onto our left side. Let your arm rest behind you for a moment. Allow the blood to recirculate back into the joint. And as you bring your right hand this time forward over your chest, we're just going to lift ourselves all the way up. And come into a comfortable seat. This time just make sure your opposite shin is forward. As you come upright, just take a moment to turn the palms open towards the ceiling and just kind of feel the pulsation of prana, of energy back into the wrists. Noticing what you've created, even in this short amount of time, more openness, presence, really. And thank you so much for practicing. Namaste.